Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Positively Healthy Mom. Today we have Amanda Trisdale, who is an amazing mother. She has an awesome 13-year-old daughter. Her name is Lita Rendell. And it just so happens that you are the CEO of a dance studio that you founded with your daughter called Autistic Wings Dance Company. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started with that, Amanda?
Well, Lita is autistic herself. She is an amazing tap dancer. She works with some of the biggest names in the industry. She is a member of Chloe Arnold's international youth tap company, Soul Talk. It's some of the best tap dancers in the world, not just in the US.
Wow.
She's always thrived in that area, but she's always had difficulties with her autism fitting in traditional dance studios. It's not the fault of the traditional dance studios, but they're built for neurotypical kids. They're not built for that slightly weird, miswired child like my daughter is. She's too good for the autistic classes because those focus on kids who can't dance, but she gets lost in the neurotypical classes and things she does, which are just autistic, like she doesn't like looking people in the eyes. She stims. She's rather shy and mousy with her voice sometimes. These get taken as her being disrespectful to the adults in her life. Even though there's things she can't control, it winds up creating some miscommunication between the adults and her to the point last fall she got fed up and went, "The adults are all bullying me." I don't think they meant to bully her, but in her mind, that's what they were doing. And she's like, "I work with Emmy-nominated choreographers. I work with Tony Award-winning choreographers. If they're doing this to me, what are they doing to other dancers?" And so she decided she needed to build a nonprofit dance studio for dancers on the spectrum.
Wow, that's like quite an ambitious dream for, if this was a year ago, a 12-year-old, that's incredible. And so it sounds like you were able to help her fulfill this dream. How did that all happen?
It's probably easier than expected when you go up to the IRS because you have to get, their permission to become a nonprofit. And I went, "This is what we're doing." And the IRS went, "Okay, check. Nobody else is doing that."
Wow.
Um, The dance community still is a little leery of us, but the autistic community here in Colorado Springs, the therapists, the providers have all jumped on board going, "This is something that needs to be done, and it needs to be done from the perspective of people in the community who know what they need." A lot of the autism classes are done from people outside the community that don't know as much about autism. They have great hearts, they just don't know what autism is. And so when you're coming up to the community and going, "Hey, we're gonna have a dance studio version of an IEP." Everyone has been jumping on board on that one, and I was like, "Yeah, that just seems normal." Um,
Mhm.
and we're having small class sizes versus, normal dance classes. Lita's 13. Those classes can get 20, 30 kids in a class. Our
Mm.
classes never go above 5. We're also offering for the I like to call them the older kids, the 18 to 99-year-olds, because there's not anything for them. Once you turn 18, autism, things like this disappear.
Well, this sounds like such a great program. I bet every city and town in the country could really use you as guidance for what they should be doing as well to provide these resources and this great, wonderful program. Okay, I know you and Lita also have a podcast together. Can you tell us about the podcast?
We do. It kind of started as she was trying to help a friend's mom out and doing stuff for her friend's mom's dance store. Because what do you do as a teenager? You get on YouTube and do stuff like that. But then the studio's Facebook page got hacked.
Oh, wow.
And my then 12-year-old went, "Well, I guess we need a podcast, mom, because I can't hack a podcast."
Smart.
And so, it's now 2 days a week. On Tuesdays, we focus more on tap because that is what she loves. It is actually what her stimming is she stims complicated tap moves.
Oh, okay.
which has gotten her in trouble at dance studios because they try to correct it, and I'm like, "You realize that's subconscious and not she's not conscious of what she's doing," and they're like, "Oh, but I can still correct the technique," and it's like, "Have fun with that."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then on Fridays, we're bringing in a lot of experts from the autism community because 'cause we've noticed a lot of parents, they're not from this world. I have autism myself. It's a world I grew up in, it's a world I know. A lot of the neurotypical parents, they're being dumped in this community they don't know about. They're still comparing their child to their neurotypical friends and their neurotypical friends' kids, and
Mm.
they're like, "My kid isn't perfect, my kid is broken, my kid isn't doing what's being done over there," and it's like, "Yeah, but it's normal for the community, just take 10 deep breaths."
Oh, okay.
And realize you're quit comparing your child over there, and she has done a few episodes where she has, as a 13-year-old can, gone off going, "Quit comparing."
Mm. Yeah, and I mean it's such a big topic. In fact, it's one that I focus on as well, both because of teenagers spending so much time on social media comparing themselves, and then also the moms and the adults do it too. We're all comparing, and honestly, there is a part of this that literally goes back to our ancestral roots, where there was times where we, needed to compare to survive. Like we needed to compare to see who has the resources, who's the strongest person, who's able to lead the tribe or whatever type of group that they were in. And so there was part of that was survival. But since we're no longer in that age, we're not needing to fight for food, so to speak, in the one beautiful country that we live in. We're fortunate, most of us, not all of us, to have access to food. And so that's the thing. It's like when we get to this thing where it's not an issue of survival, but it's just done out of like kind of our brains are wired to do that, it becomes a real unhealthy mental habit to be doing. And so, what do you do or say to encourage people to not compare?
After I stop laughing sometimes, because I am terrible at it, they'll sit there and go, "I want my kid to be like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Alan Menken," and I'm like, "If you wanted neurotypical, those are not the 3 I would pick." Um, there is something every kid is good at because they will compare, like, their children to my daughter and go, "Well, my child isn't as good in tap as your child is," and I'm like, "Trust me, you do not want necessarily to live the life we have to live."
Mm.
Unless you wanna spend a lot of time on airplanes flying around the country with a child who is terrified of flying.
Oh, wow.
Um, and she's homeschooled, she puts in about 5 hours a day practicing. Our entire life revolves around dance. We're even building a dance studio. That's not what you wanna do in your life. You need to realize that each child has something unique and special to them. They all have something they're good at,
Hmm.
and you need to lean into that versus losing joy going, "Well, but my child isn't perfect." Your child is perfect just the way they are.
Mm, yeah, yeah. That's just such great advice. And so, what about the times we had talked where in the past you maybe felt blamed or somehow someone was blaming you? There's this kind of blame culture. So tell me about that.
Especially with having an autistic kid, the amount of times I've gotten yelled at by doctors and I'm like, yeah, I come from a PhD. I may think that MDs are just glorified, master's degrees." There's definitely a little academia still in me. But they're like, "Well, your child's not doing XYZ." And I'm like, you do realize she's autistic," especially like we were in the ER once and they were complaining that she was acting immature and not understanding them. And I'm like, "She's autistic." At the time, she was nonverbal. She didn't have receptive or expressive abilities. And I'm like, "You are asking a nonverbal child to interact with you. Have you guys gone insane?" I've had therapists go, "Well, this is somehow something you've done." And I'm like, "Yeah, I've read the papers. It's not something I've done."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Other parents going, "Well, she's melting down. If you just would discipline her more." No, the meltdown comes from she's not understanding what's going on. She's been overloaded. Are you get Guys, I get it. Everyone's sitting there thinking if you're just a better parent, your child wouldn't be autistic. There are
Mm.
plenty of papers that say differently.
So it sounds like you've had to build up some pretty thick skin, or maybe you already had thick skin in the first place, but you somehow learned to not take it personally and just kind of push back and say, no, sorry, that's not right. Like, how have you learned that?
I I've done politics for 20 years. I'm pretty sure I got some thick skin there.
Mm.
Growing up autistic, I also got all this as a kid where I back then you had even more therapists going, "Well, if you would just stop being autistic." Nice to know you think that's a possibility. It's not really, but thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah.
And it was, I've gotta be the one protecting her from all these people who don't understand. They don't know what they're doing wrong, but they're
Hmm.
gonna blame the parents because 'cause they're like, "Well, if you just," and it's not your fault. You feel like it's your fault when everyone's yelling at you,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's coming from, like, the medical fields or the teachers or the dance teachers, because you look at them as though they're experts when they're not experts in your child.
Oh, that's such a great quote that you just said. Yeah, they're experts in their field, but they're not experts in your child. So I think that is just some words of wisdom that other moms can live by when, they are feeling this feeling of blame, whether they have a neurodivergent child or any other, complex child or special needs child, anything like that. So, what would you want the world to know about? Kind of like that misinformation, like kind of what you just said, where they just don't know. What would be like some top 3 points that you can explain about what autism is and what it's not?
The number one thing is it is not a learning disability. It's an actual physical disability. That learning disability came from a 1978 legislative bill that they passed in Congress.
Mm.
Before then, we were not treating it in schools. We were treating it like the medical disability it is. Kids with autism have a higher rate of issues with seizures. They have a higher rate of having issues with GI movements. They have a higher rate of heart problems. It's a physical that doesn't come from learning disabilities. That comes from actual physical disabilities. Um, they're not stupid. The number of dance teachers Lita has had that are like, "Oh, well, she's has the mental capacity of a 3-year-old because that's what autism is." They're not stupid. They just don't express themselves the same way you would expect. She's a brilliant young woman. She can actually carry on a conversation when she wants to now. And she can be very snarky when she wants to now. She is definitely a teenager. But the number of people who hear she's autistic and they're like, "Oh, so she's like a 2 has a 2-year-old mind?"
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know why that is still something that we have, wrongfully kept in the, lexicon, and just because they're not speaking doesn't mean they're nonverbal. There's a lot of difference between Lita was because she didn't have the receptive, but a lot of these nonverbal kids, they do have receptive. It's that they don't have expressive, and expressive is very difficult, especially with the English language. English language is hard for anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't treat them like they're stupid. They have a very good ability to understand you.
Mm-hmm. And talk to us a little bit, or I guess, we're kind of like creating this awareness about what it is and what it isn't. Can you shed some light to kind of the emotional, reflective process, compared? Well, we just said we're not going to compare, but like, what is it in the emotional world?
It's a spectrum on that. You will have kids who completely understand the social emotional awareness that they should. You will have kids who don't understand the emotional what they should feel emotionally, and are much more like Spock from Star Trek, more Vulcan in their thought process, but they know that they should be feeling it, which kind of aggravates them a little bit. But I mean, you have that, I think, within the neurotypical still that some kids understand their emotions better than other kids understand their emotions. The difference with autistic kids is they get lucky if and get to go to therapies to try and explain emotions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
probably could help all of us if we went to occupational therapy to discuss how to deal with emotions.
Right, right. But I do like what you said about, even neurotypical kids, there is just a big spectrum about who's, kind of comfortable, who can process, and who's less able to. And so it sounds like it just kind of translates over there as well. So what if Lita could pop on here today? What would she want us to know?
Uh, she's really big on understanding that autistic people, especially the kids, they can do stuff. She has a lot of arguments with neurotypical parents of autistic kids who are like, I don't want my child to try that because what if they fail? What if I'm judged for how they act in the classrooms? And she's been yelling at them, going, let them try. Just see if they like it. And if someone's being judgy, they're the idiots, not you.
Mm, yeah,
Imagine
yeah.
that much more in a 13-year-old voice, that you're the idiot for thinking your child should be judged.
I know, I know. I watched some of her YouTube videos, and I just love her personality. She just definitely does have that zest and that fire and that little bit of sass of the 13-year-old. She sounds like an amazing child. So, we talked about bringing awareness not just to your dance studio, but the podcast and the YouTube channel. So, where do you want people to go to promote everything that you all are doing?
Lita would love it if she could get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, because she is definitely Gen Alpha and they have all moved back to YouTube. I don't know why. Um, I'm feeling old because I thought we migrated away from YouTube, but hey, Lita Tap Styles is the handle on YouTube. That's the podcast. We're also Her dream is this Autistic Wings dance company. It's autisticwingsdancecompany.org. It is a nonprofit. We are always looking for donations because we do not charge nearly what we should for our classes. I just
Mm,
did the money again, and for our preschool kids who are in 30 minutes a week classes, it's running us about $586 per student.
wow.
And we're charging 45. So all the donations we can get over there is helpful. The big thing with that is because we're keeping the class sizes. Our preschool classes are never over 3 students. Our normal classes are never over 5 students. You can't make money with small classes.
Yes, yes. Well, hopefully this episode can bring awareness and have people go on and donate as well. Any last words, anything that we didn't cover that you would like the moms to know?
Just quit being so hard on yourself. You are doing an amazing job as a mom. No matter what anyone else tells you, you are doing an amazing job.
That's so nice to hear. I think even, we can never hear that enough, right? It's like
True.
every day. Every day is a struggle. And I think it's so important to just hear that over and over again, that repetition, because it's true, right? It's like we need to support each other and realize that we really are doing just the best we can. So I think that's a great parting message. Well, Amanda, it was so nice to meet you. I so appreciate you taking this time. And I can't wait to help Lita reach her goal on getting all those followers on the YouTube channel and getting more donations to your organization.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. Okay, take care.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.